I really want to talk today about taking adversity and turning that into action. And how do we do that? Each one of us here has had different adverse situations happen to us. We've all been through adversity and obstacles that we've faced in our lives. And some have been monumental that you've probably overcome. Maybe some you're battling right now, and some maybe, much smaller. But I'm here to tell you that in those times of adversity, in those times of obstacles are disguised as opportunities. And the way that we choose to navigate those situations and those opportunities can really help navigate our lives and really develop who we really are at the core. My story begins 2012, so we'll rewind the clock 7 years. And it's October 2012, and I'm really geared up to be a dad. We're expecting our firstborn son, and he's born. And for all the parents out here, you know that's a whirlwind of a time. You bring your firstborn home, and you have no idea what you're doing, and who's going to wake up in the middle of the night, who's going to change the diapers, whose turn is it? It's not my turn. I'm going to pretend like I'm sleeping right now, so my wife maybe will get up and not me. All those little things that we develop over time. And in those moments, we had like 2 weeks while we're kind of navigating those feelings and everything. And 2 weeks later, I was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma. I had some pain in my abdomen. They found an 18-pound mass in my abdomen. Talk about an overwhelming circumstance. Not only stuck with, the emotions of the newborn son, but now, what's going to happen here? Doctors give me 5 weeks to live. That's a change in the plans, so to speak. And so, in navigating through that, we're told, really the only option is surgery. It's a Hail Mary surgery. If you even make it through the surgery, you're not going to live much longer than that anyways, so we're not sure we recommend doing that. Well, in that moment, in that obstacle, there's different choices. And in my mind, I didn't really have much of a choice. I was blessed with the fact that my son was just born, and the timing of that, I had an opportunity to choose, am I going to choose hope and to use that as my fuel from my fear? Or am I going to use that, am I going to cripple and use that as my excuse to feel sorry for myself and just sort of let everything fall down? And so I chose hope. I chose to use it as fuel. And that's what I did. I used my son as my fuel through the whole battle. And so we made it through surgery. We made it through all the impossibilities, beat all those odds in a short period of time. And, 6 weeks later, cancer comes back. Months later, cancer returns. Failed treatment after failed treatment. For 3.5 to 4 years, it was nothing but failed treatments that just sort of prolonged life long enough. And it was failed, surgeries that got me through, but it was always constant recovery. And there were different milestones that happened along the way that really test your resolve and really test that initial choice to choose hope. I remember one specifically, about a year into the journey, the government shut down. If everybody kind of remembers that, it was shut down for about a 3-month period. And I was at the time referred to the National Cancer Institute in Bethesda, Maryland. And that was the only option for me at the time to pursue a treatment there. And so the week before I was scheduled to go out on my initial visit, the government shutdown happened and boop, no longer accepting new patients. We're only treating the patients that are currently here. And at some point, those things all start to add up. And they're man, at some point, all signs just sort of point to, I'm not supposed to be here. It's not going to work out for me. And, you go through those emotions, and they're raw, and you experience them, but you don't let those days turn to weeks. You don't let those weeks turn to months. You don't let that compound. And I kept pointing back to my son, kept choosing hope in those moments, kept choosing that I was going to use that as fuel to keep going forward in that adverse situation. So as we move forward, I eventually found a treatment in Jacksonville, Florida, and I was traveling back and forth for about an 8-month period until that trial was, eventually approved up here in U of M, and then they transferred care. And all of that was made possible. All the things that we sought out across the country over that 4-year period were made possible by the community raising upwards of $200,000 for my family and I. So in that journey, just a crazy amount of support that, again, just got behind our story. And people would comment on, wow, I'm so inspired by your attitude, Mark. I'm like, what? And I just felt like I didn't really have a choice. I have a son. I don't have an option to feel sorry for myself. He can't grow up without a dad. And so I'd always Sometimes I'd fake it till you made it. I'd post on Facebook that I'm all amped up for treatment day and woo, I'm gonna dominate, yeah. Like, yeah, bring that chemo. Like that sucks. But some days I really did feel that way, and other days I had to fake it through, but I was always choosing to react that way, and eventually that just kind of gained momentum. And so over time, that became the norm, and people just knew me as that, and so they wanted to support that cause, and that's what got me there. So through that journey, that brings me to a point where now I'm cancer-free for 3 years. Woo, right? And the community afforded me that opportunity. They quite literally funded my life. So as you can see up here, Fund a Life, it's a nonprofit that I then founded, kind of utilizing that story and using that story to want to do the same thing for others. How do I pay it forward? It became apparent that there's a higher reason here that my life was saved and that I made it through, that it wasn't just to be a dad, but what more can I use from my story to help inspire change and action in others? And so Fund a Life, our mission is to help people facing life-altering circumstances of all kinds. Most of our people that we help are facing cancer, but it's to help people of all kinds. So how do we bridge the gap in those moments where they're just being kicked when they're down, or they're diagnosed with things and life is falling apart, and on top of all of that, financial strain comes in and they're really kicking people, and it's so impossible to see the light at the end of the tunnel in those moments. Everything just compounds. It just really brings you down. And so our whole mission there is just to be the light in the darkness. How do we shine some light in the darkness? And so that's what we're doing now, is we're helping people across the state of Michigan to be able to, have that hope in the darkest of moments so that they can then go on and make a change. Most recently, we just had one of our grant recipients, and and we're small right now, keep that in mind, but we're a grant recipient is a little girl. She's 15 months old. She's been born with every challenge known to man. And she has, countless health issues and everything else. And the family just needed some money to change their flooring because of the child was so allergic to everything going on in the home. And they needed to be able to fly out to UCLA, both husband and wife, just to be together, to experience that with their 15-month-old and be there together. And they couldn't afford to do those things. And we're able to bridge that gap for them. 3 months later, she calls me, actually just 2 weeks ago, and she's like, hey, and she's crying. And she's like, the money that you gave to us, we've already changed our flooring. We're so happy. May is doing so much better, and we're going to UCLA next week. But I'm more excited about this. My middle school has forever done, a big change fundraiser that's benefited XYZ organization, and this year we had to change the leadership, and now it's gonna support Fund a Life. It's just goosebumps even right now, right? As I'm saying, it's like how amazing that. We just helped this little girl and her family in times of strife, and they're still battling through all those emotions, but they've already made motions then to take action and to put hope in the darkness of other people's lives by trying to help pay it forward back to us. And my question is, as you go forward, is each one of you has a story, each one of you has adverse situations. What are you doing with that adverse situation to take action? We all have that opportunity. Thank you so much.